Hello and welcome to Rand class. So for this week's episode I will be talking about trust, and it's the trust in professionals and news. So for almost as long as I can remember, I know people have had distrust to politicians, but in my lifetime I have seen how the trust in news and professionals have rolled downhill, especially the last couple of years. And it is something that we need to talk about and address, because if this distrust keep going and we keep having this spread of random stuff on social media sites or on the internet where all the false info is then drawn out, or where people share news that are actually faked or in some way not been double checked by the news station, so the data they are telling you are wrong, or where they have a hidden bias that they're pushing on you by hiring someone to claim to be a professional, a scientist or something like that, and it's not true. And it has this snowball effect that we don't trust the news that we actually have to trust. We don't trust the professionals that are actually trying to do a good thing and to help us, because all of this misinformation is making us not trust everything we see and hear in the news anymore. And that is not a bad thing, to think critically about the news you see, but we shouldn't take it all saying this is all fake, because it makes it really hard for when the news do it right or the professional have a point they're making to get the right data out there. Like how a lot of people still believe that a Viking helmet had horns on it, even though there has been zero evidence that have been true, but it is something that has been made popular in media and movies, so people believe it. So even when someone comes and say this is not true, people don't believe it. It's the same with the dinosaurs. They now say that they should have had feathers, but people don't really buy that idea because they're so used to seeing them without feathers in movies. And in our day and age, where it should be pretty easy to spread the news of something good and amazing, it is harder and harder for the right data to get out there, due to we seem to have divided ourselves into camps, and the camps we're in only follow the bias or the news or the word of a spiritual leader or something like that they're told to follow. And no matter how much data we see from the opposite side showing that this is wrong, we don't believe it because we don't trust them, and thereby whatever they say is not right. And it can bring real harm, especially these days where we see COVID and how people die from it, even after talking down masks and how vaccines are not good for them. And then they sadly die. And it doesn't just affect one person when this happens, it affects their families, friends, and people close to them. And this distrust of something, I have seen families getting split about it because someone just keeps claiming this is not true, I don't want to do this, while the rest say, well, you're not right. And then the anger to each other becomes so great that the family splits. That is how divided we have become. So what to do with all I just said? Well, I did talk about how to think critically in another episode, and it's something we need to do here as well. When we see the news, or every time you see a post on social media, even something I post, check out if the data I'm conveying is actually true, or they are conveying, by Googling, finding news sources that are claiming the same thing. Try to dig a bit about, find out who claimed this thing, who found the data, where did they find it, and how new is the data. And if you want to be even more sure and you're in one of those camps, look at the news from a news source that you don't normally would agree with and see what they report on the same thing. Because that way you can often find sort of a middle ground where the truth is semi-obscured, but it's there. And I know it sounds like a lot of work just to get your news, but it might be worth it in the end, since doing this will teach you how to do it in a more effective way down the line, and you will be better at spotting something that might not be true. But what do we do if we have someone close to us who seems to have fallen into one of the other camps or into some conspiracies? Well, we have to remember that they think the same of us as we think of them. And it can be very hard to chip away in this belief. But the way to do it is not to attack the person, but talk about the issue at hand. And do it in a way where you don't just say everything you just said was wrong. Instead, talk about the data that they actually provide you. And then with them, double check it. Find the sources, find the data. And then, in the end, find a reliable source. And then you might even get to a point where both of you find something and you can agree that you found the right data set and that one of you were right. But that can also be hard, since for some reason, again in these camps, the professionals one camp trust isn't the same as another camp trusts. So if you find something that one camp have shown to be the right thing, and it's the thing that most of the world agree is right, the other side might not take it for value as long as it's that person's name on the data. And people will probably say, I don't believe the data anyway, if it proves them wrong. But have just seen the data, just talking about it, in the end it all have an effect, because in the end it will make us think. The only people who don't really think about it have been so thoroughly indoctrinated into something that they no longer question whatever is said. But people who are not been indoctrinated as fully will have the thoughts go in their mind without them realizing it. And it might open the door for them to later go through and come to another camp. But one of the findings, for example, that is still out there as proof, even though it has been thoroughly proven to be wrong, is that people believe that vaccines still have mercury in them, or they give autism. And no matter how often reports show that none of that is true, people still use it as arguments for why they don't want to get vaccinated or give it to their kids. And it's like no matter what we say, they won't believe it. And it's so hard to see where people actually begin arguing over this and using those claims. And then you find the data that shows that this is not true. Then they just instantly say that your data is flawed and their data is right. But don't give up, it's a long process. And the problem with not believing the data and the pros, it's not something that goes all the way up the chain. I have seen people who don't believe their own doctors, but instead follow the words of a leader of faith or some social media guru. And it's something that I as a person would never understand, because I wouldn't just go to a random person on the street and ask them for, let's say, dentist advice and then let them do it. No, I would go to a dentist, and I wouldn't claim to know more than a dentist, even though I have helped a lot of kids actually get rid of lose teeth in school. And it's weird to see news where people claim to know better than professionals, because they have a master's education in being a parent. I am a parent myself, but that don't make me believe I know more than other people. And I'm not saying that you can't learn a lot from having children. I use a lot of the things I've learned from my own kid to actually use in my daily life where I work in a school. But if I was at work and then I used that as a claim, saying, well, I know this to be the best because I know it because I'm a parent, well, that don't really go into what I've learned. Since as a professional, you have to tell what kind of theories, what kind of data that actually goes along with what you're trying to achieve. And those data, and that is from professionals who are within my field, who have used years of studying cases and working to make those reports and that data available in books and reports so I can do my job better. And I have to use their data to say, I think this will work because of this and this, and not just because I'm a parent. And it's kind of sad, actually, that some random person claims to know more than this person who have spent years actually trying to find some data in there. And I know every time I have a talk with a parent that claims to know more about my field than I do get a bit defensive, because it's like, why are you attacking my profession like that? I am the one who spent years actually studying this, trying to become good at this, getting an exam and actually passing all the bars to be able to do what I do. Because if we didn't have professionals, if everyone could do it, then everyone would do it, but we don't. And it's not like the professionals are actually trying to be a pain in the ass for us people. They're actually trying to make a report in a neutral way so we can use it in a way that helps us, and then use that data to actually make the world a better place. Like, I use a report that talk about how thriving in schools are important, and I use that for my work in schools to help the students I'm around to actually thrive better in schools. And I can use it when people ask me, why do you do as you do? Then I can say, because according to this report, it has been shown that if you don't thrive in schools, this and this will happen. So we have to help them thrive, so this and this can happen that is positive. And it actually is okay to go into all of this with a critical mindset, but often it seems like our minds are set in stone before the process even begins. Because some people, even before the professionals state their claims, have already decided that they are wrong. I have even tried a few times where, just in the act of calling in parents for a conference, one of the parents have already made their mind up that we are just after them as parents or after their kid, and we're just doing it to get rid of them or being a pain in the ass. But that's not my work. My work is actually to make sure that their kid have a good life, gets the tool to build a good life. And I'm just trying to help them achieve that. And it's kind of the same thing when we're talking about people who are presented with some data that before we even present it, because we are from a different camp than they are, they already assume that we're just trying to demean them or make them look dumb. Where all I'm trying to do is actually just help them think a bit more critically. Because they might be wrong, I might be wrong. But the only way to know this is to actually find the data, find the right places to find the data. So I can't really say what would work or not work when talking to people who don't believe the same data, facts, or the professionals that the rest of us do. All I can say is all we can do is to question what we hear in our daily life, double check it, factor check it, and see who made the data, and ask why do these people want to show us these data, and what is the mind behind it, the idea behind it. Is there a hidden bias? So we get a world where we actually trust our news again and begin to trust the professionals again, and where we train ourselves to not fall for brainwashing or propaganda, as it used to be called. And sadly, people still fall from it. And due to social media, it has been so much easier to do it, because you just keep hanging out with a crowd that says the same thing as you. And sadly, just like old times, it's still people who want power or who want to become rich, where you see people who like the people on TV, the priests on TV, that are making tons of money from keeping their flock in fear and chain, even though they should actually be preaching about how to become a better person, and not just how to keep them in power and enriching themselves. Or political leaders who keep doing the same to try and keep in power, even though they might have lost. And just a thing about that faith thing, I don't believe faith is evil. Faith can be a wonderful thing, but it's also a powerful thing. Just like misuse of data, facts, and not believing things are real when everyone tells you it's real can be a powerful thing. So do believe, have faith. Just remember to think for yourself. And remember to check up on data and read more than one newspaper. Watch the news from different sites and different stations. And stop believing everything we read on social media, even if it's from me. Again, I'm just a human. I might be wrong at times. And if I'm proven wrong, then I'm not afraid to correct myself to make it right. So I hope you found this interesting. If you did, feel free to share it. And please come join me on my social sites. Reddit, Facebook, Instagram, Patreon, YouTube, so you don't miss on the new stuff from me. And I wish you all a very nice day.